Ah! Hi. Anyway, probably wondering what movie we could possibly be talking about as this one approaches the shower curtain with a giant fucking knife. Anyway, thank you. We're obviously going to talk about the OG, the ultimate slasher, the original slasher, and that is Psycho. So, shall we begin?
Let's begin.
Let's begin!
Anyway, I believe we were talking about Psycho as I almost got stabbed in the shower. Love that the logo of my hat is sideways on your head, by the way. I guess we're going to start with the obvious point. Why is it the initial slasher? It was the original portrayal of a Scream Queen for some of the most obvious reasons. It was Janet Leigh, and of course, oh, by the way, we're going to spoil Psycho if you haven't seen it yet, so just be aware.
Spoilers!
He puts that in the description of the video, so just be aware. She plays the damsel, in her own distress as it opens. Basically, she's involved with a man who's coming off a divorce, and it's a tricky situation. And for whatever reason, she feels compelled to steal quite a bit of money from her employer. In getting out of town and all that stuff, she ends up at the Bates Motel. Shitty ass fucking motel. Befriends the lonely caretaker Norman. She knows he has his old mother who's nasty as all hell from everything you hear. Very controlling, very demeaning. Anyway, she just plans on spending a night at that hotel. And after having dinner with Norman, she goes up to take a shower. And we're about a third into the film at this point, maybe closer to the halfway mark. And as you probably know by this point, given the iconic score and the knife behind the shower, she doesn't make it out of that shower alive. So it was the initial big kill off your lead well before the plot's fully developed idea. Which, best case scenario, that was reiterated and clearly influential of the original Scream movie, where Casey gets killed off, Drew Barrymore's character, in... While it's an amazing, she gets killed off in the opening scene. On a side note, that was actually her idea. She was originally cast as the lead in that film and then decided to play the first victim because she thought it would be a better shock to the audience. So, much like Hitchcock and everything else, Psycho was played up to shock value. And it worked perfectly. Let alone the iconic scream itself as she's being stabbed to death in the shower. But yeah, I think that's the first original moment that was portrayed over and over and over in both good and shitty slasher films. And then you even had her daughter becoming arguably the greatest Scream Queen of all time with the Halloween series, and that would be Jamie Lee Curtis. So I think that's probably the most obvious, definitely not the only reason, but it's definitely the initial Scream Queen, which would then be portrayed as the heroine, or, the virgin, or whatever iteration they took in any slasher film that came up through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even today's to a certain extent, being the most recent new one we saw, Hellfest. Well, didn't play the virgin, you definitely had the leading female in that case. So that's part one of the legacy. Time to jump into part two. Alright, so moving on from the Scream Queen aspects. I think another key moment I think there's four total we're gonna put in here. Another one would be the putting us in the killer's point of view. Now, anyone who circles back and knows the history of slasher films or horror movies is actually Peeping Tom was the first, but Peeping Tom didn't gain the notoriety that Psycho did. So maybe we'll talk about that video another time when I actually analyze Peeping Tom. Two key scenes in Psycho where you get the killer's point of view, and they're both during a kill. The initial one being the shower scene that I mentioned previously. In that regard, you see Marion Crane, Janet Leigh's character, in the shower, and you see a shadowy figure with a knife come through. It opens up, and it's just a silhouette, and then it cuts, and you see from the point of view the knife coming down as she falls dead into the shower. Much like you get in the opening scene of Halloween from '78, where you get 6-year-old Michael Myers murdering his sister. The other time you get the killer's point of view is when the private investigator, Arbogast, goes upstairs at the house. He's not supposed to be in there, looking for Mrs. Bates. And he goes to where he believes her room is, and next thing you know, he's met at the top of the stairs. But again, we only see behind. We see the hair of the old lady coming behind, and then we see, again, stabbing down, and then we get him falling all the way down the stairs, dead. That's been used countless times. I mean, we've seen it in Friday the 13th. I mentioned Halloween. Scream to a certain extent, but Scream then, thinking of Scream 4 as I most recently viewed that one, they do it a little differently as in that one the killer likes to record the murders. So when you're getting it from the killer's point of view, you're seeing it through a lens, not necessarily through eyes. Hellfest, we saw it through the masked eyes there when he was looking through the park for his targets, things like that. And the needle scene a little bit. We got it, and then it was a cutaway, and they actually showed wide, but you initially saw that face-to-face, too. It was groundbreaking territory at the time, you know. Yeah, people have died in film, you've seen it, but you never actually see the person doing it to almost give them... In any scenario, it's different in a way. Like, you feel... Even though you're scared to watch it, you feel empowered to a certain extent because you're in control.
Like, it's meant to put the audience in the shoes of the killer.
Yeah.
To, like, get them to feel like, oh, you know, this is what a crazy person...
Yeah, and especially in kills like this where, somebody. You know, the shower scene, completely unprovoked. Just take a shower, let's just open the curtain and stab her. And then the private investigator, that was not self-defense in the literal way because they weren't being attacked, but it was protection almost, you know. Hey, it's getting to the point where people are figuring out people are dying at this hotel. Killed them as they come here. We'll just keep burying bodies. That never works, but let's try it anyway. So yeah, it was definitely a power play, and it was a new experience for the audience and groundbreaking. So it's another advent of a continuing trope of slasher films, whether successful or not. Again, like so many slasher films tried these, and they're just bad movies. Then several tried them and worked. You know, it's not the defining moment, but it's become repetitive in what I think is a good way. Especially in scenarios where, you know, you don't know who the killer is, but you're suddenly seeing something through their eyes. You have no idea what they're going to do next. You know, it's not like, you know, hey, I know this is Tommy, and he's going to go get in his car, drive, I'll go back up. No, it's like, well, where are they going? I don't know, because I don't know who this is. So it's just something to keep a look at. So that's 2 key points down, 2 more to go. Alright, so the next big key factor in a slasher film, as he continues to play Spider-Man... What the hell was that, man? Would be the suspense. Hitchcock was a master of suspense in all of his films. I'm just choosing to focus on Psycho. You know, you could do Rope, you could do Vertigo, Rear Window, North by Northwest. I'm just choosing to focus on Psycho. Once Marion went on the run with the money, it was really not knowing where her story was going to go. You know, you didn't know what the end game was. Where the hell was she going? Once she ended up at the motel, you really just thought it was a quick, nonchalant stop. And then, you know, it was after her death, once she had been the lead, the suspense in where is this going to go, what's going to happen next. And then with the investigation with her sister and Sam still looking for her. And the private investigator asking all these questions. And then his death just piling on. The thing with this film, though, and the 2 memorable death scenes is that they were real quick turns. So the suspense necessarily wasn't building up because they just kind of happened. The shower curtain opened, she'd been stabbed. The investigator stabbed and falls down the stairs. But in the notable slashers since, there can be suspense almost with each kill. In Halloween, Michael Myers stalked the teens. And you knew he was lurking around the corner until he struck. You didn't know when he was going to strike, but he did. Like with him waiting for Annie in the car. He could have been in any window. He waits to strangle her. She's building and building. You know, numerous attempts on Friday the 13th. Pretty much any time a character in that series was left alone anywhere on the campground or pretty much anywhere they go, you knew death was coming. You just didn't know how or when. So the scene would just build up until, bam, somebody's getting a machete in the face. And then with Scream, you know, you had the opening scene with Casey where it took forever, and then from the second the phone rang, you just knew something was off. And then it just goes and goes and goes, and then, you know, Steve's killed out back, and then she's brutally murdered and hung, and then pretty much anytime Ghostface is lurking in the background in almost every other scene, you see him somewhere. You know, you see him in the bushes outside the house, you see him in the grocery store, which is a little weird because, you know, how would nobody notice that? You see him in the school, in the school's bathroom. But then cut to scenes where the principal's by himself analyzing the mask, and he gets a knock on the door and nobody's there. You know he's dying. The suspense is building, but you know something horrible is going to happen. You just don't know what. I think we can trace this all back to the suspense and the twist that Hitchcock was a master at putting into his films, and just how that legacy has, you know, stayed on. And just to touch on Hitchcock once more, I think his legacy in characters has lived on in the fact that Sam Loomis, one of the main characters in Psycho, that is the name of the doctor in the Halloween series, Dr. Samuel Loomis, and then Billy Loomis in Scream, obviously taking that same last name. just to throw that little nod out there. So just an appreciation for Hitchcock from what he set standard in the horror genre. And it looks like we have one more point, and it's a pretty relevant point that we still have to make. So let's turn our attention to the twist ending. Anyway, so twist ending. Yeah, this was kind of the first in the sense that, you think it was the mom. You're looking at me really weird right now. Do you think it's the old lady? You think it's Mrs. Bates, and then you find out, she's been dead for years, right? Because they had her buried in the cemetery, and then it's just Norman had kind of taken her personality and is wearing the wig and like chopping these people up while stabbing them. But it's not revealed until the end, and you're still to believe it. So it's one of those twists you didn't see come until you find the corpse of the old lady. But I think that plays into, leaving out the whole Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees things. You know how that story plays out, but like, I think touching on Scream and several other mass killers in the sense that for the most part you don't know who it is until the mask is taken off at some point. So, it can, in certain cases, certain characters had faked their deaths earlier in films only to come back and realize, hey wait, they were actually the killer all along. Or, hidden ties and they actually have a relevant connection to the lead, Scream Queen, circling back to that have a lead connection. Or I guess if we're going to talk about twist endings, I guess we have to reference M. Night Shyamalan being the master of these things. If you've seen The Sixth Sense or, anything else that he's done, with the exception of The Last Airbender, let's just not watch that. But
what a great twist ending! The whole movie was
great
ass.
movie. Period. Amazing. I'm serious.
I know, and I'm trying to discount.
I'm not.
Yeah, now I've lost my train of thought. Thanks, buddy.
Sorry,
Great show, plot twist, terrible movie.
Two different plots for sure. It's going bad. That was really dumb.
The narrator was Tyler Durden the whole time. Oh my god.
That works.
What?
We're just spoiling every film you've ever seen from here on out, so we'll just keep going.
The butler did it.
Yeah, it's the not knowing in horror films moving forward, in slashers, in whatever, when you're not faced with a demonic entity where you kind of know what the hell's happening, but when a human or human-esque killer, you have no idea who they are, I guess. Just that surprise element, I think, plays best in thrillers and horrors more than anything else. Certain surprise elements. Yes.
Have you watched Hill House?
Yeah, I'm done. I finished it.
There's a twist.
Yes, I don't know if he hasn't, so let's be
Okay,
careful
but
with that.
what is it, episode 5?
Episode 5, yes.
The crooked neck lady. You remember her?
Bent Neck Lady. Yeah, my friend
Bent
was
Neck.
literally watching that while we
Man?
were filming this video, texting me. She had just watched that episode. Funny how that works.
But that was,
That's perfect. Also, The Haunting of Hill House is like the best horror series I think you can ever watch, so go watch that. But we digress. We've covered our 4 points for Psycho. Got some other movies in mind. Also, the Spyro Reignited trilogy is going to drop soon, so I'm sure you'll see some gameplay of that from this one and from me. We might do like what we did with Crash. And I'm sure Greg has some things he'd like to discuss. What have you been posting on the page?
I'll probably put some Red Dead 2 on there. A couple screenshots, maybe a couple funny videos of me running my horse into walls and stuff. Some Fallout 76 beta. I'll probably put some screenshots of.
And he's been doing...
Spider-Man, Ultimate Difficulty, boss fights. Yeah.
So if you're not already, go ahead and head over to our Facebook page, Buffering Syndrome, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and we have plenty more to come.
And our YouTube channel.
Which, if you're watching this, you're on it.
Subscribe, like, share, give us a follow,
Hit
say hi.
that ding bell, too,
Stay notified.
notification.
Also, we're on Twitter if you want to follow our dumbass opinions.
I'm not.
He's not. But
I got a Facebook then.
yeah, put the links for our Twitter somewhere on here, or at least me if you don't want to put yours. That's
They'll
fine.
be down below in
Um,
the description.
This has gone completely off the rails in this final act, so that's it. See you next time.
Off the rails like a crazy train.
We're gonna get sued for that.
Ozzy, is that you?
Hazy?
Hazy?